Ryan Jenkovic with Strong Dogs USA. Wanted to play devil's advocate on this one. Been wanting to make a video on why I got Arya spayed, but within that video, I ended up thinking about reasons why, like other than myself, reasons why other people would and would not spay/neuter their dog. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to play devil's advocate. We're going to play both sides of this. I'm going to give you a few reasons why it might be a good idea to get your dog spayed or neutered, and a few reasons why someone might not. Now, with that being said, I could miss some points. So if you think of any other reasons, put them in the comments and let's rap about it. So the first one, which is one of the reasons why I did actually, it's like point 1A and 1B, is health issues. Arya did have symptoms of a false pregnancy after her. Technically, I also found this out. Big breed dogs, Malinois included, can have what they call a quiet heat, meaning they actually go through a heat, but they just don't bleed. So they can go through a quiet heat and then they have their actual heat where they bleed. So when people see that's their first heat when they bleed, technically they also might have a quiet heat, which would count. So the first time you see blood would be heat 1 and 2, and then you can go ahead and get them spayed. And they've kind of, shelters are spaying and neuter dogs, big breed dogs, right out of the gate, and they have seen no issues when it comes to hormones or temperament. So something fun little fact that I learned from my vet when I brought her in, because it looked like she was having the longest heat ever, but it turns out she was also having a false pregnancy. So she had her quiet heat, and she had her heat where she actually bled. But then there were certain side effects or elements that I noticed from her that I'm like, this is a very long heat. Things aren't going back to normal. Let me go to the vet. I did. And that's where they told me about she possibly might have a cyst on her ovary, which can cause the symptoms of a heat where she's very clingy, she's drinking more water, appetite went down. She still ate, but she just wasn't eating as fast. Motivation was hit or miss, and she was developing small separation anxiety, which she's never had before, where, I put her in a crate and I leave and I could hear her bark. She never did that before, but I started noticing these patterns. So if you pay attention to your dog every day, day in and day out, you'll notice small changes on how they are. Just like people, some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. Dogs are included in that. So the health benefits of spaying your dog would be something like that. Also, the possibility or reducing the possibility of certain cancers, ovarian or testicular cancer for your males. There's also UTIs. Yes, they can get UTIs. So, even though you can get UTI after being spayed, it's just a probability. Also comes down just depending on the dog and, their lifestyle. So health issues will be the number one. My number 2 reason why people should spay their dog is population control. And I wrote these down. This is why I have the computer here. Population control prevents unwanted litters. I don't get it when, dogs are almost like I want to say a prop, but a fad. It's cool to have a dog now. People kind of overestimate, the dedication it takes to have a dog, and therefore you get, dogs put back into shelters or they're mixed match homes. So yeah, anyways, I'm going off on a different subject, start thinking somewhere else. But population control prevents unwanted litters. It helps reduce overcrowding, because you don't want to bring more dogs into an overpopulated world and with no one to take care of them. Shelters can't keep taking care of them, and they can't even keep up with some of the dogs that they have in their shelters currently. I think this SPCA said they average about 50 dogs a day. So that's a lot of dogs to take in and day out. So by population control, and you got to think, it's true, population control. I looked this up when I was going through the video of what it would be like to spade a dog. And it's actually not that invasive. There's very little blood done right. But their tubes from their ovaries all the way down into their cervix is long. If you remember that wishbone from the turkey, like when you play that game, hey, make a wish, wishbone, it looks like that. So there's a ton of space for a ton of eggs. So this is why when you get, bitch gets pregnant, there can be 7, 8, 9, 12 dogs in a litter because there's just a lot of space. Also with overcrowding, now you can always trust a stupid person to do something stupid, and backyard breeding is stupid. They're mix matching breeds, which is irresponsible. You're diluting the main line of the dog. Backyard breeding and mix match breeding is the equivalent of sleeping with your sister or your cousin. You're at Chili's, you got 2-for-1s, you're taking shots, you're going back and forth talking shit about mom and dad, and then next thing you know, you do something stupid, and then the byproduct of that is incest child, and they got the wandering eye, the goofy arm, definitely on a short buzz, braces, headgear, the whole thing. That's the equivalent, definitely temperamental issues. Look at Joffrey from Game of Thrones. That tells you everything you need to know. But now you got four-legged creature whose sole purpose is survival and hunting. That's what bad backyard breeding is like. So now, hopefully by neutering or spaying a dog, it prevents that, but it doesn't stop people from doing something stupid. So this is where good judgment comes along. So, and I've had this happen to me multiple times where people accost me where they want to breed with my dog, and I say no, because I don't know them. They could say they're a reputable breeder. They can just say, oh, your dog looks cool and cosmetically good looking. I want to breed with your dog and let's make some coin. That's not being responsible. That's called bullshit. So stay away from people like that. So prevents that. Taking away the bad judgment part aside, hopefully it just prevents poor breeding. And that's what happens when dogs breed too much. Genetics, the bloodline gets diluted. So there was 3 reasons why missed one, behavior. I'm starting to say this one because I've heard this from time and time again. I'm sure you guys heard it too, where if your dog has temper issues, they have aggression issues, getting them neutered or spayed fixes that. I'm starting to say it doesn't. I think that's just embedded on the dog, and whether they have ovaries or balls has nothing to do with it. Sure, they can bring down, testosterone or estrogen, to a degree. I don't know what percentage, but I don't think that takes away that behavior. That's like, if you're an asshole and now you get on steroids, you're just a bigger asshole. You get off the steroids, you might be even more of an asshole because now you're totally just imbalanced. So take that for what you will. I don't think clipping a dog changes their behavior, but that's just me. Now, reasons why someone might not want to spade or neuter their dog. Hormone development. I mentioned earlier, at least my vet told me, I'm not a vet, do not have a PhD or doctorate in this realm about hormonal development. I was always on the page or just learned from page, but it's kind of like one of those interpolated notions. You say it enough, it becomes fact. The man who shot Liberty Valentine, when the myth becomes legend, print the legend. So this might just be a legend that if you're hoping to keep your dog's hormonal development in check and in balance, they keep their dog together. You're waiting on growth, bone development, muscle, but as my vet told me prior, clipping a dog may not have actually any effect. So this one is kind of like, yes, I'm tiptoeing both categories. I usually don't like to tiptoe, but this one, okay, because I just don't know enough fact to change someone's mind if they say that. But I do think that it doesn't, because the working lines, the sports dogs, the police dogs, things like that, they kind of want that little extra muscle. And by having them intact makes them feel that way. Then if they feel and believe it will, then it will. But that's, you know, in their hands, not my hands to change their mind. Performance and working, protection dogs, all this, can they think it may adjust their recovery and their drive? Doubt it. I think it does not. I've clipped Ace and Ava. Ava didn't lose a step. As I'm learning with Aria, as she gets out of this state with, I'm just keeping her on a leash or keeping her training to a minimum. Very boring. I haven't let her take a bite on anything because she has stitches, not because she doesn't have ovaries. Another reason why someone might want to keep their dog intact is shows. In shows, you need an intact dog. They won't let a cut dog into the show. So when they go and they get certified for their masters or their, I'll write it up here, insert here, they have to be intact. They won't, AKC won't recognize them if they are cut. Westmaster, all them, same thing. So that's one. So unless your priority is shows, I get it. Another reason why someone might not cut their dog is, in fact, if they are good breeders and that's what they do. It's kind of like dating. You got to date with intention. Breeding your dog or keeping your dog intact is breeding with intention. Now, you heard me rap about backyard breeding. There are good breeders, of course. Where do you think a lot of these people get these awesome dogs from? So for every good one, there are bad ones. So if you're a good one, I totally get it. And they're always, a good breeder will always, one, do their homework on who they let their dogs to. Also, if there is any issues, breeders will take the dog back. A lot of backyard breeders, once the dog's gone, it's out of their hands. They got your money. You'll never hear from them again. Good breeders don't do that because their whole business is built on the dog and its behavior and their reputation, and they don't let that soil at all. So there you go on that one. Another point, just personal beliefs. They think it's ethical or unethical to cut the dog, keeping it as pure as possible and wanting to preserve the bloodline. That's what I just mentioned about good breeders. So I understand both sides, but if you're not intending on showing your dog, if you have no intention in breeding your dog and knowing the responsibilities that comes along with, and I put it on here about, you know, the dog's drive and recovery and hormonal development. I'm going to say to that one. I'm changing my mind. I'm going back to say cutting doesn't affect that at all. Get your dog cut. But I would love to hear from you guys if, you know, I missed anything. But overall, the health benefits, check. The population control, check. Bad breeding, check. There's just a lot of reasons why it's good to spay or neuter your dog and challenge me. Tell me what you guys think. Talk to you next time. Peace.